Welcome to the day 6 video. Today we're going to talk about the introduction to regressions, or using regressions to write equations. So what are regressions? We have regression equations, which is an equation of a function, linear or exponential, that we've learned so far, that plotted points follow or create. The calculator command will create these equations. When we create these equations, we will see a correlation coefficient, or an R number. This number describes the strength of the equation in regards to the plotted points. So in order to perfectly fit, the equation will have an R value of 1 or -1, depending on the slope of the line and if it's a growth or decay for an exponential curve. These concepts will be expanded further later in the year, but these are just the basics that we need for what we're doing currently. So remember that correlation coefficient for what we're doing needs to be a 1 or a -1, since we are writing equations of lines. So let's look at how to calculate this. So first, in order to calculate a linear or exponential equation, we will need, for a linear equation, 2 exact points from a table, graph, or word problem, and for an exponential equation, 3 exact points from a table, graph, or word problem. Now the reason for 2 for linear is because once we have 2 points, there's only one line that'll go through it. But exponential, we have 3 because there might be some functions where points repeat on 2 different exponential curves. So we need to make sure that we have 3 for that. So what are the steps? We're going to go to the calculator. So I have this picture. Unfortunately, it won't show you what should be on your screen, but I can at least point out the buttons that you're going to be using. So when we put the steps in our calculator, the first thing we need to do is turn our diagnostics on. Now, turning your diagnostics on is important, and every time you reset your calculator, you'll need to know how to turn the diagnostics on so that we can get that R number, okay? So in order to do this, you need to turn your diagnostics on. So to turn those on, you're going to hit the second button. That's the colored button on your calculator, second, and then the number 0 to look at the catalog. When you look at the catalog, you can either click the letter D, so above this one you see the letter D, or just continue to scroll down until you see Diagnostics On, and then you'll need to hit Enter. Diagnostics On will show on your screen, and then you'll need to hit Enter again to make sure that your diagnostics are turned on. Then it should say Done. After you've done that, you're going to put your points in a list. So in your calculator, you're going to get to the list by going to Stat, which is along the side of the alpha button. So you're going to go to Stat, and then you'll see the first, along the top, you'll see Edit, and the first option will say Edit. So you're going to hit Enter so that you can edit the data. If there's anything in your list, you're going to want to hit the Up button, and then you'll hit the Clear button, not Delete. You don't want to delete your list. That won't help you. You need to just clear it. Otherwise, your L1 will be completely gone instead of empty. And then Down. So again, that's Up, Clear, Down to clear that list. Once your lists are blank, and if there's anything in L2, you could hit Over to get to the L2 and do the same thing. Up, Clear, Down. Then you're going to list whatever X values you have in L1, and then your Y values in L2. So you're just entering the data. So if you're putting in, like, say the X value starts off at a 1 and then a 2, you would hit 1, enter, 2, enter. And then you would go over to your L2 and do the same thing, enter your Y values, okay? Once you've done that, you would go back to Stat. Then you're going to hit the Over button to get to the Calculate. And then you're going to scroll down till number 4, which is linreg, ax plus b. So you can either just hit down until you get to that, or you can press number 4, but down to linreg, ax plus b. And then it'll ask you some questions when you hit enter there. It'll say X list, L1, Y list, and L2. It's asking you, are your X's in L1 and your Y's in L2? The frequency list we're not going to use right now. So we're just going to scroll down until we see calculate, and then enter, and your calculator will enter and give you the all the information. Y equals ax plus b, a equals b equals c equals, and so on. And or r equals a equals b equals, and then your r value. The r value should be a 1 or negative 1 just to show that it is perfect. Okay? The next one is so once we've done all those things, and if you were doing exponential regression, so that was all for LinReg. The only difference with an exponential regression is when, on that second step, when you went to stat and calculate, you would scroll down until you found exponential regression. And then we would do that. Okay? So then once we've done those steps, again, you want to verify that it's perfect by making sure that the R value is a 1 or a negative 1. Then you'll be able to write down everything that your calculator gave you. And this is explained in words, the steps that you did to get the equation, since there was no math involved in writing the equation. I usually write down my list of values and put the L1 and L2 above it and write down LinReg or exponential regression so that I know that's what I did to find the answer. Then that tells me that you went to your calculator and you did a regression. Okay, so these examples together, this says to write an equation of the graphed function below. Identify the type of function, whether it's linear or exponential, and then write down the correct number of points needed and follow the steps to calculate the exponential or linear regression, depending on which type of function it is. So in this first example, when I look here, this has a constant rate of change, so I can see this is a linear function. So that means I'm going to need 2 points, since there is only one equation that will go through those 2 points on a linear function. So what I was saying before is I like to write down a table. I usually write down this x and y table and write the L1 and L2 above it so that I know that I'm finding points and putting them into my calculator to calculate the regression. Then I need to find 2 good points. So the first one I see here is right on the x-axis. I can see that's 5, 0. That's a good point. And then we just need to find one other one. So I could see over 1, 2, 3, up 1, 2, 3. That looks like a good point also. So I found my 2 points. Remember, that's 2 is enough to go ahead and write the regression. Now, if you wanted another, it wouldn't be a problem. So if you want to always do 3, that would be fine also. You just need to make sure that when you have an exponential, you show 3 points. So like I said, if you want to just always show 3 points, that would be absolutely fine also. So like I said, my points there were 5, 0, so that's why I plugged that in with the x value 5, y value 0, and then 3, 3. So now that I plugged those in, now I'm going to go to my calculator and we're going to do the linear regression. So what I usually do is I write down all that information, LinReg, and then I write down the y equals ax plus b, so I know that what I'm doing is I'm getting the linear regression equation from the calculator. And then I write down a equals, b equals, and r equals so that I can get those values out of the calculator, and then that's showing that what I did was go to my calculator and find the values. So again, this is, instead of using words, that's what I choose to do to show that what I did was go in the calculator and do a linear regression. Okay, so now again, to the steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to first go to Stat, and then the first option on the left side of your screen will say Edit. You're going to hit Enter so that you can edit the list. You should then go to a list with the L1 and L2. If there's anything in L1, you're going to want to go to L1, go up, clear, down to clear out everything in L1. Then over to L2, and again, if there's things in there, you're going to hit up, clear, down to clear out L2. Now that they're clear, I'm going to go back to L1. Then I would enter in my x values. So the 5, enter. And then 3, enter. Then I'm going to go over to L2 and I'm going to type in the 0, enter, and then the 3, enter. Then we're going to go back to Stat, over to Calculate, down till I find option number 4 or the LinReg with the y equals ax plus b written next to it. Then hit Enter on your screen to make sure that it'll ask those questions. The x is on L1, y's are in L2, and you'll go to Enter to calculate the linear regression. If done correctly, your calculator should then pop out with the LinReg and then the a value equal to negative 1.5 and then a B value of 7.5, and then an R value of -1. So this shows me that the R value is -1 because there's a negative slope, but it's a perfect line that goes through those 2 points. It's just a -1 because of the slope. Okay, so now that I have done this, I can finally write my complete answer, the equation. They asked me to write the equation. So y equals -1.5. I'm plugging that in place of the a value, x, to show that that's the slope, and then plus and the 7.5 to show that that is the y-intercept. And then that's my final answer. So again, I showed all these other things to show what I was doing. I wrote down LinReg, so I'm not going to explain because my explanation was with all of these steps that I showed up here. Okay, so now we're going to do this again with an exponential regression. So over here, I can see when I look at this that this is exponential. I can already see that curve shape. So this looks like an exponential function to me. So now I need to go ahead and do the same thing by writing out that it's an exponential function, writing down that it's an exponential function, and that I'll need 3 points. Then I'm going to have this similar table to what I had on the left side. So I just wrote down again the x's and the y values, and then L1 and L2 above them to show that I'm going to do a regression and putting them into L1 and L2 in my calculator. Then I need to find some good points on my screen. So when I look on my graph, the first good one that I see is 3 up 1. Everywhere else it gets really close, and I can't really tell exactly what the fractional is, but 3, 1, that looks like a good point. And the next good one I see is 4, 2. You can see how that's very close to entering there. And then 5 is up to a 4. So those look like my good points. Now, exponentials can sometimes be a little trickier. So when you write your exponential function equations, when you're looking for the points, they become even more important, and you'll want to make sure that you are typing in the right points. And the way to check that is to look at your R value. If your R value is not perfect, it's not a 1 or a -1, then I would look back at the graph and see if maybe you were really close to a good point, but not exactly at the best point. So maybe you need to adjust one of them. So we'll do more practice, like I said, with these, but that's a good way to check and say, well, is it really 3, 1? Or maybe it was actually, that wasn't a good point. I should go find a different good point. So that's usually what I would do if it's not a perfect R value for the regressions where we are writing equations. So 3 is with 1, and then the 4 value is with a 2, and then 5 is with 4. So again, I'm just writing out my points, and then I'm going to go to my calculator again. So we're going to go back to Stat. We're going to hit Edit. It's the first tab on the left side, so we're going to hit Enter. There's going to be some information in there, so we're going to hit Up, Clear, Down to clear out my list, and then over to L2, Up, Clear, Down to clear out that list, back to L1, and then we're going to enter in our values. So the 3, Enter, and then we're going to enter 4, Enter, and then 5, Enter. That was list all of my X values in L1. Then I'm going to go over. I'm going to list my Y values in L2. So 1, Enter, 2, Enter, 4, Enter. Then back to Stat, over to Calculate, and then we need to go down till we get to XReg, an exponential regression, and then hit Enter. Again, it's going to ask you where your data is, and you're going to hit Enter to go down till you calculate, and then Enter to calculate the exponential regression. Enter will then give you the exponential regression and all the information. So I write down, like I said, XReg to show that what I'm doing is doing an exponential regression in the calculator, and then y equals a b to the x power, and then I write down my a and b again. And again, I write all those down so that I know I need to get those out of the calculator. And then in my calculator, the a value is 0.125, and the b value is 2, and the r value is 1. So that shows me it's growing, but that is my check to know, okay, well then that looks like a good answer. So then I need to write my equation, because I wanted the equation, not all that work, not the blank one there. So I need to put in the a value, which is 0.125, and then the b value needs to go in parentheses, so times the 2, and then the x stays since it's an equation, so I can plug in x values and get out y values. And that's my answer there. Okay, so hopefully all these steps make sense. You can rewatch them if needed, and then you're going to try some more on your own. So in the ones that you're going to do on your own, the difference is I had to find the points on the graphs. In these ones, number 3 here, they're giving you the points. They're telling you to use the points -2, -11, and 314. So you're just going to write them in a table and then calculate the regression. And number 5, same idea. They're giving you days. Those are x values, and the heights, those are y values. So you can put x and y next to them with the L1 and L2 and do the same thing. So you're doing the same pieces. You just need to now get them out of these tables. And then the next one is another table. Number 7 here, Jackson is starting an exercise program. This is a word problem, so you need to read through here and find out, okay, well, what is my input and my output? So what are the values that I need to use for that? This one is a little tougher because it's a sequence here, but these are just the terms. These are your x's. In goes which term I'm looking for, out comes the number of blocks. So x would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then your y would be how many blocks in each diagram. And then the last one, the same idea. You are going to use the points. So in arithmetic sequence, the 10 is 10. So the third term, so that's number 3, term 1, 2, 3. So that's an x value of 3 here is 10. So the third term is 10. So that's the point 3, comma 10. The fifth term is 26, so that's a 0.5, comma 26. The first term is A1, which is an equation for the nth term of the sequence. But then when I look here, so these are all sequences. We haven't actually talked about sequences yet, but this is just going to follow a linear pattern. And we'll talk more about sequences when we get there. For now, all you need to know is when I look at all these equations, these are linear functions. So you need to do a linreg with those 2 points that we found in the question. Okay, so good luck with those, and we'll talk more about them in class. Have a wonderful day.